Good morning. Today I am going to continue with the footstool that I was finishing. Yesterday I fitted it some more and roughly sewed up the side seams and made any adjustments that I needed to make. And today I'm finishing up the side seam, putting the stitches in tighter because now I know they're where they need to be so I can sew it nice and tight. So I've got just a little bit of the fourth seam to do. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. This is one of those videos that is being recorded, as they all are, but this one will be edited. So in a couple of days, go to rugcamp.com/blog and you will see the sorry. I can only do one thing at a time. I swear to God. Let me get this camera so that when you get to rugcamp.com and you click on blog, you can actually see a recording of this video, edited down, and it'll include some of the shots from the camera that I have overhead. So for now, we'll have to make do with this view. And you can see my big stitches here. They're probably 1/2 inch apart, just enough to sort of hold it together while I fit it to the footstool. In here, I've done some much tighter sewing. They're about 1/8 of an inch or about a number 4 cut apart. So I'm going to finish that up. And then I will actually be doing what seems like the harder part. It's really not. It's really fun because it gives you that finished look. And that'll be hooking up the side seams. Oops. So I almost opted not to do this today and to go back to hooking because the sewing, I'm having a lot of trouble with my thumb, and this sewing makes it very difficult. But I was able to do the rest of I did some sewing yesterday, and then I did some earlier this morning. So by the time I gave myself a rest, I felt that I was okay to continue with the rest of this. I only have to go to here, so it's not too far. And part of it too is if you're real patient and you kind of get it in between the threads, it'll go through smoother. It doesn't need as much push, but I usually end up just pushing it through. One thing I didn't mention the other day, because this is a whipping stitch, every so often I do one in the same place, and that sort of tightens things up and keeps it from shifting sideways. The other thing that I forgot to mention is you don't want to go down too far. You don't want to dig into the meat of the rug. You just want that little tiny bit. You're only connecting it by, a thread or two on each side. You want to be careful not to sew up the loops, which can be sometimes the most difficult part of the whole process, which is why I'm wearing my glasses so I can see where that thread is landing each time. And we're almost there. I tend to always sew the point a little bit tighter when I'm just roughing it in, only because it's hard to get back to it later. So that one's got quite a bit of stitching in it already, so it really doesn't need a whole lot. I am going to take this little bit here, push it down with my needle, and try to sew that tight together. Take a bite on, ouch, right into my finger. I should be wearing a thimble. Okay. Yeah, I think for me that's close enough. I'm happy with that. I'm just gonna, sorry about that. I set an alarm so that I knew when to start the podcast. Ooh, that drew blood. And I evidently didn't turn it off. I just snoozed it. Okay, so I have all 4 seams sewn together. And as you can see, there's various degrees of white showing. This one has quite a bit because, as you can see, there's part of the design right here. And we weren't sure if it was what color it was going to be. And it kind of depended on how the houses worked out. And in particular, turn it this way so you can see it better. This little house here, see how there's a door, and that's where it ended. That's where the pattern ended. And we weren't sure what to do on this side. And I think what I'll do is just a little bit of the blue coming down, and maybe all blue or blue and then a red. I don't know. I'll have to wait till I get to that seam and make my decisions then. But for now, let's go back to the simplest one. And that's this seam, because there's just a tree right there in the middle and a section of ground. And the one side, the roof ends, and here is the background coming down into it. When you're hooking this on the inside, you're just going to take the seam allowances and push them all the way over to one side as you hook up this part right here. When you're ready to hook the other side, you push them over here and hook that side. There's no advantage whatsoever in hooking both of these, or hooking through both layers. Okay, so I need the green that's at the base. I'll push that to the side. And I'm hooking it the way I did the other day when I needed to add a little bit to the bottom. I'm holding it, and luckily this footstool is not too terribly deep. I've never made one of the cube footstools. I would guess those are going to be a little bit harder because it's harder to hang on to it like this because it's so much taller. Now, if I've got a spot like right there, looks like the hooking kind of wavers a little bit. The row is not super, super even. So I'm just going to pop over here and bring up a loop sort of right here in the middle. And actually hooking this kind of randomly and not in a row is actually going to help to disguise the fact that there's a seam here. I'm going to twist these loops a little bit, put them in different directions, and I'm done with this color. So what I'm going to do while I've got this color in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and push all the seam allowances the other direction and try to find that little bit of area that's left on that side and force some loops into that. Now, this should feel like it's being packed because we want it packed because this is actually on a corner and it's going to be bending. So we don't want to see, let me get a dark place so that you can see that better. We don't want to see something like that on the crack, even though it's perfectly covered when it's flat. So my spot. If you got a spot that's a little bit bare, you know, squeeze 2 of them in there kind of weirdly. This is where you get to fill up that space nice. Okay. Now I need the green for the tree. And I'm going to start on this side. And this cut's a little small, so rather than hooking and cutting another big one to fill up the space, I might hook in some places 2 loops side by side to fill up the space, because if I put a great big cut in there where Liz did not use the big cuts, it's going to look a little bit weird. But what I'll typically do is when I have a space to fill, let's say I've got a space like this to fill, and my loop is only this big. So there's that little extra spot, and you're going to run into this a lot in rug hooking. What I'll do is take a loop and put it sideways and just sort of tumble them in here any old which way until I fill up the space properly. So they're not perfectly lined up like that. See how they're a little bit more jumbled? They go in different directions. There's no real row to it. It's particularly nice here because it makes the side seam sort of disappear a little bit more. And that one came up twisted, which I am going to leave because, again, it disguises it. It makes it look less like a perfect row. And now I'm beginning to dislike the row I hooked in the other day. I think what I'll do, part of it's okay because a short line will blend in, but it's this long part that's giving me a little bit of eyesore. So I'm going to take a little bit of it out. This hooking is low, so it's hard to get these loops. Here we go. So I took a little bit of it out, and what I'll do now is using that kind of jumbled up process. Once I get past the rest of this loop right here, I'll be doing a lot of that jumbled up process, and I think that will really help to make the seam completely go away. Come back down here. What I'm not doing right now, simply because I can't figure out how to get the camera to consistently do that, is to take the hooking and actually put it between my legs and then put my hand inside, and that sort of holds it in place. But then you won't be able to see what I'm doing. So this is getting a little bit difficult to hook. But I do want to get this one seam done so that you can see a couple of things. You can see how long it takes. You can see what it looked like before. Remember not to get too high. I'm going to match the loop height of the loops that Liz did. And I can only do one side of the seam because the seam allowances are in the way. But as soon as I get one side done, then I can go on the other side and work on that. Okay, I'm getting a little tall. Keep them low. It's the exact opposite of the usual mantra. I'm usually telling beginners, pull them up high, pull them up high. But Liz's style is a little bit on the low side. So I am matching that so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Good. Okay. We're getting there eventually. Now I'm back up to where I had. This is getting to the point I'm going to have to put this between my legs so that hopefully maybe you can still see. I know I lose the overhead camera view, but this is the only way to get it done. And then by holding it tight, it works almost like a frame because it stays where I need it to stay. taken care of. Okay. I'm not feeling particularly coordinated today, so I'm struggling a little bit with getting the hoop or the hook caught on some of the backing threads or the sewing threads. They're both kind of in my way. Doing sideways because I'm starting to get a pretty even row look going on, and I want to avoid that. Okay, and then I think I'm going to end it on this side. I'm going to end it on this side right about there. So it's not quite in line with the top of the tree, but I want that to gently work its way up. I don't want a straight edge at the top of the tree. So I'm going to continue on this side. This is going to be background. Where's the background wool? And what Liz has used for background are two closely related but different wools, but they're very closely related. Now, what we didn't want to see was a bunch of worms or spaghetti in the sky. And one way to test that is to either lay them out, take a picture in black and white, and if they're the same value, then you know they'll work, or do the pinch test, which is fold the wool in half so you have just one layer of each, pinch it, and then look at what you're seeing between your fingers. If you can't tell the difference this way, you're not going to be able to tell the difference to the loops. So here's a piece of backing. I'm going to put it back down between my legs. And I'm going to get that secure and hook away at this. Really struggling with keeping these low. I have trouble getting my hook out of the loop. I guess I had never realized how big of a problem that is. It's another way for me to look at how beginners are hooking and give advice. And I'm just going to continue all the way up the side. Okay, got that stuck on something. And I'm going past the actual stitching. And I'm going to go up into the rug. And if there's a seam, if there's a spot like right here along this roof line, the curve of the seam is right here. And it's going up into here. I'm just going to continue to hook that and pack that little area a little bit more. And it just sort of blends in what I'm doing here on the side seam. It's a little hard to see because it bends away from me. I'm going to pack a couple of loops up in there. What am I doing under there? Okay, I think that about does that. And then I can come back down here and find where I want to start the other, move the seam allowances over, get out of my way, and figure out where I want that evergreen to end on that side of the seam. And then just hook that edge up. If you haven't hooked a footstool or something three-dimensional, there's something very special about it. And I think it's because everything else is a rug, and then here's something that is 3D. It comes right into your world. It's useful, and it's beautiful. A lot of people have told me that their favorite thing they hooked is a footstool. And I know it's not just because of my designs. I know it's because of the magic of footstools. It's just wonderful having a hooked object that's not just a rug, it's something more. Okay. And I'm finding a place up here to bring the end of that side strip up. I'm going to cut those until I get that hooked. Another piece of green. Oh, I knew I was going to run out of something. But luckily my cutter is set up right here. Is that the size I want? Yeah, I'm going to keep it big. Now it almost looks like there's not enough room to hook that particular color in that spot. And remember, we are packing these. So it should feel like you're really squishing them in there where they don't belong. Okay, I'm going to anchor it back between my legs so that I have almost a frame. It's actually okay when I can leave my thumb on the top like this, but after a while you get to a point where you can't do that anymore. Turn the loop sideways because I'm starting to get the look of rose. And then at some point you got to put your hand completely inside, and that's where your knees take over. This one's got a little bit of an open area here, so I'm going to squeeze 2 loops in side by side. Again, that'll also help to disguise the seam a little bit because you're not going to have an even row of hooking. I'm getting there. Almost. And the bit of hooking we've done, this doesn't tell me how far into how many minutes we've been recording, but it hasn't been that terribly long. What is it, about 20 after? So it'll take you roughly maybe a half hour a seam. And then we had to do the sewing up thing that we did yesterday. But that's still faster than taking a 30 by 30 inch rug and whipping the edge on it. That takes a lot more time. And I don't consider rug hooking as something I'm racing to get through. I enjoy the process. I look at it as cost per hour. If you rush your hooking, it's actually costing you more per hour. Not that that's a huge thing. This is kind of a fun way of looking at it. But it's a bit like a novel. You know, if you read it too fast, it's done. And then where do you go after that? Your friend's gone. You know, there's a little bit of a depression once you finish a project because you're so excited, you're in love with it, and you get it done and it's over. Sure, you get to find something new, and that's exciting. But don't rush it for the sake of rushing it. Rug hooking takes as long as it takes to get it done. Snip, snip, snip. Now these half-hour sessions, sometimes I go over, depends on what I'm doing. But these half-hour rug hooking sessions that I'm doing live like this as a hook-in is designed to help me get back to hooking. Let me show you this before I go on and explain that. But here's our seam. You really can't tell where it happened. The fact that it's mainly textures helps too. But when we bend this, you know, we're not going to crack it and be able to see the backing. Of course, if we bend it all the way, we can, but that's not the way it's going to live. It's going to live at a 90-degree angle, and that covers it up just beautifully. And I've got a nice shape here on, turn it a little bit more. I've got a nice shape here with the tree so that it looks like a tree, and it's not pointing at the seam. The top of the tree is actually inside the rug a little bit. So I'll repeat that process for all 4 sides. In this particular one, I have to do the other side of the window trim and mostly house color. I'll have to work on addressing how these line up. We knew that that was going to be an issue. Looks like it might be sewn up a little bit crooked. I might take that part apart and re-sew it. And then on this one, I'll finish out the windows, let them hit that column, and then put in the building color on that one. On this one, I've got a little bit of rough building color, and then decide how big the door is. I'll probably put building color there, and then I'll find a way to attach this grass to that grass because that's off a little bit. And that's what makes this particular pattern a little bit harder, is that you're trying to match things up from one side to the other. Now, one thing I haven't decided on, and let me give you sort of a preview. I showed it in another video. Where's my stool? Let me get this. I showed you this a couple of days ago. Oh, better camera angle. Let's see if I get more further away so it's not filling up the entire screen. Okay, this footstool is from IKEA, and wonderful steal at $35. It included the foam, did not include a cover at all. And mine's getting kind of ratty because I took it with me to solder because I knew I was going to work on the footstool. It's been tried on several times. You could cover it with muslin if you wanted to keep it nice, but no one's going to see it. So what I've done with that one is, instead of trying to actually attach it as a permanent piece of upholstery, this is simply going to be a slip cover. It takes a little bit of wiggling to get it on, but it fits very snugly, but firmly. I've learned over time that I want to kind of line up my corners before I pull it all the way down, because it's easier to shift it when it's only part way up, and then pull it down where it needs to go. And that's what it'll look like finished. The whipping actually kind of curls to the inside, which I really don't mind. That's because of the method I'm using. I'm using the method where you simply fold it over cording, and that tends to make it curl towards the back, which is kind of a problem when it's a rug, but it works great in this application. It almost completely disappears. I don't think there'll be any shifting of this. I have a little bit more whipping to do, which tomorrow I am going to a hook in, let me see what time of this is the 3rd Thursday of the month. So it's in Sylvania, Ohio at the Senior Center. Starts about 9:30. And I'll be taking this with me And I need to deliver that pattern that I drew a couple days ago. If you were with me then, you might remember that one. But I need to do a little bit more whipping. And I've got a section here and a section here where I need to address attaching these two pieces together. So for tomorrow, right now, I'm not planning on being here live, but I am going to check with the Senior Center and see if they have internet. Then I will be on live tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and I can show you a little bit about what our group is like. It's a very, very small group. And then if I plan it right, I will get to the point where I'm stitching these together, and that would be like just a 5-10 minute lesson. But I can share that with you then live tomorrow, if I can get internet. If I can't, then it'll be on Monday. I have class on Friday, so I won't be there then. Although this is the second class of the session, I didn't want to do it for the first class, but since it's the second class, I might end up broadcasting during that class. I have to get the students' permission to let me do that. So you can see what one of my classes is really actually like. It'll probably be a short video, but that would be kind of fun. What else can I tell you? These videos get recorded and show up on YouTube, so you can always go there. The ones that have lessons in them, I edit them up. I combine the overhead camera and make it easier for you to see. And I'm posting those on the blog on rugcamp.com. And you can see and listen to those videos there. They're much shorter because they don't have me doing a whole lot of stuff. I'm just giving you the high points, but it gives you enough to know how that process actually works. So that's it. I hope next time you'll join me live. Simply click on the link that shows above or below the video when the video's live, and you can actually come on camera with me. If you want to take your camera, I know some people are shy about, I know what it's like. If you want to have a view like that, and that's your view, and you're off to the side, but we can still see you, I'm okay with that. I guess I could talk to a pile of wool. I'm sure I've done that before. But I'd rather see your face. But if that's the easiest way to do it, feel free to join me. I mean, I'm showing up every day with my winter extra weight and my shiny face and some days really bad hair. I'm getting over it, okay? Life's too short. I want to share this with you, and I've been putting it off for too many years. So that's my goal, and I hope you'll join me in that purpose and actually come on live with me so you can ask some questions. I'd love to hear from you. So I think that's it for today. Bye for now, and I'll see you maybe Thursday, maybe Friday, but for sure on Monday. I'll see you then. Thanks.